finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
All right, welcome to episode 14, where we have 4 F's to give, and these are actually going to be the foundational elements we think in a good life, and just happens that each one of those concepts or elements starts with F. But before we get to that, May has a message for us.
I would like to remind you all that we have a quick message from MR Insurance, a small business that helps physicians with their disability insurance needs. Michael L. Relbus is a CFP professional and insurance agent committed to helping physicians nationwide with their term, life, and disability insurance needs. He provides an objective, transparent, and education-focused process that aims to help physicians make prudent decisions and avoid overcomplicating things. He exclusively offers own-occupation disability insurance policies for residents, fellows, and attending physicians. We know he'd be happy to help you with whatever your needs are. You can find Michael at drpodcastnetwork.com/MR Insurance or contact him at 800-817-4522. As always, I link these in the show notes.
All right. So let's get straight to the F's.
We got 4 F's to give.
We got 4 F's to give.
We got more than 1 F to give, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. After this week, I feel like I have 0 F's left to give.
Yeah, it's been a week or 10, and we'll share later, I guess.
Yeah,
we'll get to why we got 4 F's to give for sure.
But we've been through a lot in our life, as anybody, professionally, in our marriage and so forth. And we're going to outline every one of these concepts first, go back and do a little bit of detail. And this podcast today is really more of an overview of these concepts. And then as time goes by, we'll bring them back as a reference point where in interviews where a certain part of somebody's life is really, illustrative of one of these concepts. So they go in order: faith, family, finances, and fun. And I think that they're all really, really important, but they have to also go in the correct order.
And I'm surprised. Everyone will be surprised who knows you that you didn't put fun at the beginning.
That's exactly right. I have put fun at the beginning, and it becomes much less fun for the
family.
Second F. Exactly. And lots of men do that. Or they put finances ahead, or whatever the case may be.
Not just men. I think, you're giving, yourself to, I don't know, what would be the right way to say it? You're not giving yourself enough credit. It's not just men. I think it could be anybody that gets the priorities mixed up, right? Right.
It reminds me of there's that old visual kind of adage where you have the big jar, which symbolizes your life, and you have these smaller 4 other jars, and there's rocks, pebbles, sand, and water, and the whole idea is you're supposed to put all of those things in these slightly smaller jars into this large jar. Well, what ends up happening is if you put the sand in first and then the pebbles, then the rocks won't fit, and then then you put the water in and it all overflows, and the idea is you have to put things in the correct order. So you put the big stuff in first. You put the rocks in first, then you put the pebbles in, you shake it up a little bit, you put the sand in, you shake it up a bit, and there's still a little bit of room for the water. And so the idea is you prioritize your life from biggest and most important to smallest and least important, but understanding at the same time that they're all really important.
Yeah, I'd never heard that before. I guess I'm late to the table. You were playing that. I'm like, hey, that's really a cool analogy.
Right. I mean, you can actually do it, and it's pretty illustrative when you look at it, because you're like, there's no way in the world you're going to get all that stuff into that one jar.
Yeah, it's like, it's full. There's no room for anything else. Surprise.
Exactly. And so and especially as physicians, you get into a place where, I mean, it's really super easy to get out of balance. Like really, I mean, I haven't done anything else as a career this long. So, I mean, I can't compare it, but I can compare our lives to our friends' lives. And it's really, really easy to get out of balance as a physician because it's like you have this important job. You're saving people's lives. You've trained for however long, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and I mean, I think even in previous generations, it was even worse. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it's easy for anybody to get out of balance. Anybody that's really heavily involved with, a busy career or a busy family or overcommitting to some volunteer activity or, it's just priorities, right? And if you don't have things balanced, it's easy. But absolutely, physicians, professionals sometimes don't really step back and look at the big picture.
Well, right.
Until it's way too late.
And the thing that's interesting about the 4 concepts is that, okay, like we just said, it's really important that they're in the correct order. But it's also really important that they're balanced in the correct order. Okay? And so for instance, I mean, I've had friends whose parents were, incredibly committed to their church to the point of neglecting their family.
Right.
And they think, well, God first. Well, that's true, but if you have a family, from a Christian perspective, and I'm not making any apologies. We're Christians. They were committed to our church, to our our faith, and to our Christian friends and whatnot. But even from a Christian perspective, like Paul says, if you're going to have, a wife, ergo a family, then you have a different set of priorities than somebody that like goes into the ministry and is like he was, who never married, or actually, little theological side note, who probably was married and his wife was killed.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Because he would have never been able to get to the level of the Pharisaical. To be a Pharisee like he was, you had to be married.
Interesting.
So in reality, Paul probably had a wife when he was still a Pharisee before he was a Christian and before his Christian ministry. And then,
a little biblical trivia there for you guys.
So, but then there's no reference. He never references a previous relationship, never references children. I mean, it would be almost impossible to be married 2,000 years ago and not have children. I mean, it happened, but it was a fluke more than anything else. So
as we get to these 4 things, are you saying that you think that it doesn't matter what the order is, or it can be any order, or it's just balance, or they're equal columns, or do you think one comes before the other?
No, I think the order is critical. And I think we should define, first of all, each of the F's, and then we should define what order means.
Okay.
Because that's critical. Like, does ordering mean I have
importance or time in your life or seasons of life or
correct.
Yeah, right.
So does order mean because I'm committed to my church,
right,
because that's my faith, that I get free tickets to the Super Bowl, I go to church and give the tickets away.
Right.
Okay. And you see, I mean, that's obviously hyperbole.
Good point, because I know people will be listening going, well, maybe they're all equal, maybe they can be, there's seasons of life where obviously things are going to be more important. So, does one have to be more important? So
there's no question.
Should we unpack them one by one here?
Yeah. So let's go one by one. So first of all, faith. Now, I'm not gonna go through and do like a sermon or anything like that. We have a strong Christian faith, even though we do docktails with cocktails. But if you went to our church, you'd probably understand. But that's a different story. That's a sidetrack. But that is our faith. Now, what if somebody's listening and they're like, "Well, I've never grew up in a church. I have no faith. I'm not Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm not anything."
Well, that's still your faith.
Do you still have a faith? And the answer is, I would contend absolutely.
Yep, I was just going to say that. I mean, you still live by a set of moral rules or no moral rules. You still live by a code of some kind of thing that gives you, directs what you're doing day to day, what you think is right or wrong, what you place value in, how you look at other people, how you value yourself.
One of the best descriptions I've heard of faith is it's the color of glasses you're wearing that tints your perception of the world.
Exactly.
It's the filter with which you filter everything that happens. Now, you don't have to be on Facebook for more than about 14 milliseconds to recognize that for some people, their faith is the Democratic Party. For other people, their savior is Donald Trump. And it's literally like a religious experience for these people.
And, well, some people's faith gets mixed up and their priorities get clouded. There we go. Your glasses get clouded, right?
Right. No, but again, making zero moral judgments at this point, okay? You know, it's true. Like people look to all, like for some people, I know of people.
Are you referencing me when I get triggered on Facebook?
No. I know of people who, when they were divorced, had to put in the divorce papers that the other person could not assume their fantasy identity in Dungeons and Dragons. So that's getting pretty close to a faith experience. Now, they may not go to church. They may, I think one of the
maybe that's their fun experience.
It might be all of them, and of course they're all. You still have a lot of interweaving that goes on.
Right.
But for instance, I think the TV show Cheers was a tremendous example of what like a lot of churches should probably be like, where everyone knows your name. Like that was the whole point. And it's actually part of why 12-step programs, when AA started, the concept was most people get drunk in bars. And so they have this huge social element that's a trigger for their drinking, because when they're socializing, they're drinking.
Right.
And so when the guys that started AA said, hey, let's make this program, they had to basically get a dry bar. And so that's what they did. So it's, hi, my name's Tim, I'm a Corvette alcoholic, and, hi, Tim, all that kind of stuff was so that there was this, it replaced that same kind of there's a place where everyone knows your name. And they did an incredibly effective job in that television show of actually bridging those two worlds, because as you remember, Sam Malone was dry. He was an alcoholic who owned a bar. And so Norm comes in and it's like, hi, Norm. I mean, it's exactly the same. Right. And they bridged those two worlds, which I thought was incredibly fascinating. And so, but that's, and so faith is how you see the world. I mean, there's people that we meet, just from a, political perspective, we end up sharing way more values than we think, but yet they're way on another side. But yet there's still times where you're like, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, look at that data. But they see it completely differently because they have a different filter on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, you're right, would think that, oh, that's not important. I'm not religious. I'm not spiritual. It's not an important part of my life. But they're really, I think, not digging deep enough and really recognizing that it plays a part. And they might not think of it that way or be calling it that. But you really, if you're one of those people, you really need to step back and go, yeah, how I approach the world, my values really is a big part of my life, and in decisions that I make and don't make, how I treat people. How does it affect me in my other areas of life, which were good because they all overlap in a big circle, which we'll get to, but how does it affect my finances? How does it affect my family? How does it affect what I do, my fun? And of course, my career, how I'm at work, and how I dress things.
Well, right. I mean, the other way to look at it is faith is kind of like a rowboat, like those rowboats, they row down the Colorado River through the rapids, like what Powell did when he was discovering, basically the entire Grand Canyon, which, I mean, it's just amazing when you think they would hear rowing rapids. They wouldn't know if it was a 200-foot waterfall because they're paddling through a 1 mile deep canyon. And I'm like, did they have an extra rowboat just for his balls? Because it's just like, it's just amazing what these guys did. But faith is like that rowboat. And so a lot of people just get into the boat and they don't do any paddling, and they just bounce off of rocks, and the currents of life and of the society just kind of take them. So if you're a person that has a religious faith, the challenge I'd throw out is, look at it, grow deeper in it. Do you really believe it or not? And if you do, it's going to affect you. Because, I remember having a conversation with one of my pastor friends, and I said, I say I believe one thing, but boy, I got a lot of crap in my garage and I got to like suck my gut in to get between all my toys. So, what you do ultimately tells you what you really believe. And so that feedback loop is really important. If you're not a person of religious faith, then I think it's just as critically important to say, hey, what do I really believe? Why am I doing this? Am I in a rowboat actively paddling it through rapids, or am I just going to bounce off of stuff? Because we see a tremendous number of people that are just bouncing down the water, and then they wonder why they have a headache, and they wonder why they're, sucking in water.
Yeah, or they think they are in control of their life. They think they have an oar, and they really have, a stick that is totally useless. And they're like, oh, yeah, I'm totally directing this. And
or they're not even in the boat at all.
Exactly.
So we think that, clearly that, faith is the thing that is going to guide you. It's going to direct you. We believe there really is God. And so he speaks through these tenets. And we'll give examples as time goes on as far as how our life's been affected.
Do you want to touch on how it impacts the other areas or work?
Well, I think that will become obvious. So the next is family. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's really, really important to, if you're going to, first of all, be in a long-term relationship, get married. Plus, if you're going to add children to that is, the second highest priority. So the first, you first of all have a, common belief structure. So that's like the foundation of the house. And then you start building the house, which is your family, on that. And so
I would say even, extend it to even the non-traditional settings in a way, maybe not, what we believe in marriage and the family in the traditional sense, but even if somebody is living with a partner 10 years, or if you're single, your family might be your siblings, your parents, your best friend, that is your
there's no
family. So,
and I would extend family to your tribe.
Right. There you
have friends that are, I have my
people
my
that you would pick to be like your family, even though you're not blood relatives. Right.
Right.
That's your family, your little tribe. Exactly.
If COVID has not taught us, the thing that it's taught me more than anything, because of how we related beforehand, is that it is critically important to maintain those connections with the people that are closest to you. And some of those, maybe siblings, parents, obviously your own children. Our children are, gone now, but, obviously we have, we talk to them frequently and whatnot. But also like friends and how that whole kind of tribe is really super important, because like when stuff hits, like when things are bad in your life, that's who's going to be there for you, and vice versa. That's where you need to go and give and share when things are bad for other people. And so,
and people are meant to connect. Doesn't matter. I am one of the biggest homebodies, one of the biggest introverts, one of the people that would win the COVID survival contest, however long it goes in, that we'd be on lockdown. But still, even I even suffer from social anxiety, which is getting better. And even still, I need people. And so you could say that, oh, I'm like going to be the hermit in Alaska that never has to deal with people. That's not a healthy relationship. Most people people need people, whether you think you do or not. And there's the one side of people. There's the social butterflies that have the big tribe, like the big family. You're very socially connected. That's more important to you. But even, me, who I say at times I could just live on the moon by myself, like we announced last week for a long time. I know I've really been awakened, especially this last year, at how much, with everything going on and COVID as one of the factors, yes, I need people.
Yeah, and I heard a really good statement several years ago, and I think I had said it one time, and then I heard somebody else, voice it, which is, the quality of your relationships really is the quality of your life. If you have high quality relationships, you don't have to have 400 friends. You just, you need 2 or 3 close ones. The quality of, relationships clearly with your spouse, and then, moving that on to your children. If those are high quality, if those are, where you receive, care and love from them and reciprocate that, and there's trust and all of these things, you have a high quality life.
Right.
You know?
And so it's so easy as we get busy to forget about that family, that tribe, that best friend, that person in your life that really is meaningful to you, because you start to take things for granted, right? You start to think, I know that they're there for me. I'm busy. I'm preoccupied. I'm being pulled away by work. Maybe you're working 60, 70 hours. You're out of town, or you're caught up in your own little thing and you neglect that. I mean, it's just like tending your garden. If you don't tend to that and nurture it, then it's going to suffer. I mean, you're going to suffer. The relationship will suffer. And you need to, I mean, people need to be reminded. I'm saying it sounds obvious, right? But we're guilty of it too. But
no, absolutely.
You can't take things for granted. When you start to take it for granted, then it starts to really decay.
Well, there's a chapter in, I believe it's Outliers, one of Gladwell's books, and it's fascinating because there's this town they looked at in rural Pennsylvania, and it had these ridiculously, like this insane amount of longevity. They had all these people that lived into their 90s, and so they went into this town and they factored in everything. They go, okay, is this because people smoke less? And actually, they smoked a little bit more than average. Is it because they have this super killer diet? And they're like, no, they eat tons of carbs and whatever. Is it because they have a lower obesity rate? And it was like, no, it's like the national average. Do they exercise more? No, kind of average. And so they did all these factors, and the only thing that they could come up with is that the people in this community, the way it started was, it was this small community in Italy.
I knew it. I should have said it before you did that. I was like, it's got to be a little Italian family or a big Italian family.
So it was this community in Italy where all these families were connected to each other. They intermarried with each other. They whatever. And then they're like, let's go to the new world. So then, they get on the boat.
Oh my goodness.
And they travel to the United States, and they bring the entire community with them. And so when they bring the community with them, they maintained the connections, and the maintaining of those connections was this thing that just absolutely radically changed the quality of everyone's life. And so they lived longer because they weren't as stressed out.
Wasn't all that ravioli?
Well, maybe it is.
Sambuca.
That's why I think it's perfectly fine to smoke and eat carbs.
There you go. Well, man, we could do like a show and a half or more on the importance of nurturing your family and not neglecting it, and tips and ways to do that. But let's push on to number 3.
Finances. This is something that May and I have finally pulled our collective heads out of our rears on, but
a whole lot of what not to do when you're growing up.
We'll go through that, what not to do when you're growing up. It's like, I've been in residency forever. Now I'm making really real money. I guess I should spend 12% more than I make. And those kind of concepts.
You like the car rescue instead of the animal rescue?
Yeah, the car rescue. Mm-hmm. So finance is critically important. People don't like talking about money, and I don't understand it.
It's crazy. Don't talk about politics, money, and their weight.
Or sex.
Oh, no.
What if you combine
that's
sex?
Splattered all over.
What if you combine sex with money? Can you talk about that?
Well, there's a name for that. Like,
right.
What, you're a whore?
Marriage?
Oh, not even paid enough.
Clearly not. Judging from the fact that we have to go to outer space to do it, yes,
exactly.
That may be the case. So, at any rate, finances are critically important.
Well, and being that, wasn't it I don't know the data on this, but of course it's one of the biggest factors in the dissolution of marriages, the biggest factor for breaking up marriages. It's mentioned the most times in the Bible, along with
Jesus talked about 2 things more than he talked about anything else: money and hell.
More than love, right? Hell was
more than heaven, more than money and hell. Because he's like, gouge your eye out if your eye causes you to sin, and that's what causes you to go to hell. That's how big of a deal it is.
Gouge your eye out if you buy another Corvette.
No. And money, no, because I'm buying a Trans Am this time, so we're moving on. We're going to spread the wings a little. So money is critically important. One of the best descriptions I ever heard of this was what is his name? David Lappin. He's a rabbi in Seattle, and he said, no, money's critically important. Money is like blood. You die without it. But just like blood, it needs to stay in your body and stay circulating through your veins and arteries. If you spray blood all over the ground, you know something's happening and someone's injured. So you don't spray money around. You respect it. You understand what it is. You have to talk about it. But it, it's this engine that allows you to live your life in certain ways. It allows you to bless people in certain ways. But again, you don't just spray it,
Right. Well,
use it in a way that's irresponsible.
It's like food. I mean, it's one of those necessary things of living. You need a tool to survive in the economy, which is money. It's how we transact, and you need food to live. And people can use and abuse them equally, the same.
Yeah. So it, I think talking about money is important. I think that our younger physicians, when they get into contracts, it's like that should be one of the first things you ask. It shouldn't just be how much time do you get off. It's like, how do you get paid? It is so easy to get screwed in contracts. It's unbelievable. And your time is valuable. Your time is incredibly valuable. You sacrificed your entire young adulthood to become a physician. Don't get screwed. Get paid what you're worth. It's critically important.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things we shouldn't have as taboo, where we should share more, even with your little tribe, your family, and talk about it more openly. Because I think if people are more transparent and share what they've learned, the struggles they've gone through, because there's nothing worse than, when there's the pressure to make more or have more, or you're sick of it and it's less. And it's what your focus comes down to. People's, are you focused on the money, or are you driven by that, or it affects everything.
It affects absolutely everything. And that's, that's exactly it, right? It affects the other two F's.
And if you don't have your financial house in order, or you're worshiping at the financial altar, it just trickles out into everything. You're miserable, or everybody feels it. So that one is a big one that I know that we can sort of discuss and get into a whole lot more in the time to come, and offer some tips, tidbits. And
right. Yeah. If there was anything the way I was raised where I thought, my parents could have done something differently, is I wish they would have just educated me on how money works. Because we all, whether you know it or not, you will suffer by it, or you will be blessed by it to your own benefit or peril. It doesn't, whether or not you understand how derivatives works and whether you should be buying options, it actually, that stuff, as in the weeds as it is, it matters because it affects your life. And, I wish I would have.
It's one of the basic things you need to learn at school.
Right. And
balancing a checkbook.
Basically, my dad was,
investing.
he worked super hard. He never had debt. There was very specific reasons for that. And he's like, just do what I did and it'll work out.
But it's not magical, which is what it looks like. But it's not magical,
and it's a different world. And they still didn't know that much about the actual finance side, which is actually important. Like, our son knows way more as a 21-year-old engineering students about how actual finance works than we knew when we were 40.
He knows more than I do about the stock market right now. It's kind of frightening.
But it's not just the market. It's all of these other things that are associated, and it's like the fact of like that we met this fellow that's starting this actually, it's basically a ministry where he builds retirement funds for Christian ministries, so that, they're investing in things that people, don't have moral objection to. They're not buying shares of, Pornhub or something like that. And
next Reddit thing.
Yeah. So he looks at how the companies are managed and all the rest of it. But there's another big aspect to the morality of investing, is how they charge fees. And that's stuff that I was completely ignorant to, right? Like, you just start a job, you get a 401k, you throw the money in the whatever mutual funds that they think you should throw it in, but some are way better than others.
Yeah, there's a lot of immorality that goes on in there. And
so
a lot of people are blind to that.
The more educated you can be, the better. And it's really not that hard. It's just that most doctors just ignore it. They're like, hey, I make a bunch of money, I'll put a certain amount away and everything will be fine. And
not just doctors, like I'm saying, everybody. Yep.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. Okay, the last one, which I like the most.
Number 4 is your favorite.
Which is fun. People say, like, did you ever have work-life balance? Well, I'll tell you when I felt like I had work-life balance, and I have no idea if the family felt I did. But this would have been about, 10-ish years ago. I worked 4 days a week, and then I had Fridays off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, so it was perfect. So Fridays were my day. So I'd get up at 7:30 in the morning. I'd go water skiing for a couple hours with my buddies, and then I would drive straight to the drop zone, and I'd skydive 5 or 6 times, and then come home and watch Canadian football with my 10-year-old son. That was perfect. I could work hard. I knew I had that. Or I'd go ride motocross for a couple hours, and then I had to do like 2 or 3 different things. That was awesome, and actually makes a huge difference if it doesn't disturb the other folks in your world too much.
If you have,
because you're not crazy. Like, I needed that to not be crazy, or to be more correctly, less crazy.
Right. I guess I'm thinking if you have a nanny, a maid, a grocery shopper, a house cleaner, a yard man.
Doesn't everybody?
Where do I stop? Anyway,
the closest we got was to yard man and nanny, but only for a short period of time.
We had a housekeeper when the kids were little. Now you have a housekeeper. It's me. So those times for me were a double-edged sword, because honestly, I knew your mood was great. You were happy. You were just filled with energy and joy, but it kind of sucked on the other end because, not because you were like gone, it was exhausting. And then people would go, he's got so much energy, how do you live with him? I'm like, well, he comes home and he crashes on the couch, and then he expends all that energy elsewhere, but I'm feeling neglected here. So to me, it wasn't balance.
Motorcycles were easier to manage than you.
Oh, burn. I don't know what to say.
Same with parachutes. They were way easier to... No, but really, that's the case.
And I just think of all the vacations we went on. This guy would drive me into exhaustion, and we'd come back, and I'm like, I need a vacation from the vacation, because it was like, okay, what are we doing in the morning? And then we have this activity in the afternoon. And then there was something like later on in the evening, and it was like usually sports. And I got wrapped into all this. I always got like beat up and injured, and it was tiring. And yes, we had fun times, but whew.
No, but I think we keyed into something in relationships, because I know guys that neglected their families because they were on the golf course. Like it's the fact is because the golf course is easier to manage than little kids. I mean, I know people in my own family that would be on on various political boards or church boards or whatever, because it was easier to manage that than it was to manage a bunch of screaming kids and a wife that has needs that you need to meet as well.
Oh, right. It's an escape, and it's fun. And
you still need the escapes, but the thing is that like what we have discussed for our entire marriage is it all needs to be negotiated.
And it all needs to be balanced. Now, we are talking about, a plethora of fun in our house. Some people more than others. But honestly, there's a lot of people, it's actually the opposite. They are not taking care of their fun side, their adventure side, and they're plowing it all into like work, family, and they're neglecting themselves. And they're not, I have so many friends, especially women, because they're used to giving to other people. Physicians are used to being givers. They don't take care of themselves. And if you don't, it just sounds cliche, but it's true. If you don't take care of you, you have nothing left to give to other people. And it really drives me crazy when I see these people, having an excuse like, I can't work out. I don't have time to even just go for a half an hour walk to feel better. I don't have time to read or have a bubble bath or go out with my friends or a guy that wants to do whatever. You need to replenish your stores or you're useless to everybody, including your spouse, your family, your kids, your people in your work environment, and especially you.
No, you're more than useless. It's not that you're useless. Useless is one thing.
You're not being your true self.
No, but you're a negative drain. It's like obviously I'm a high sensation seeker, so it takes a little bit of effort.
We are reeling that in, but most people need to be pushed to do it. And so that, that's the yin and yang in our relationship, is you need to push me a little bit more. I need to really win. But for the most part, most people are just stuck and they don't take care of that part of their lives. And I think that would be the biggest thing, what a lot of people neglect behind finances, is the fun part.
Yeah, and you know what? It affects everything else. When you feel like you're getting your, jollies or whatever, your phonometer, closer to the red line, then, you care more about giving back to your faith and really living based on those principles. You definitely are emotionally more there and attentive for your family. There's no question. Like, all of these things, like, they're almost all just as important. That's the thing. It's not like again, like the guy that goes to church Sunday night, Wednesday evening, Friday night, and somehow, okay, I've ticked all the church boxes, now I'm good. Well, no, you're not, because if you're really living by, the faith you say that you profess, then, you got to take care of your wife. Sacrificially take care of her. You got to take care of your children. You got to make sure that your debts are paid. And,
I think you ticked the fun box, though. Maybe that's, maybe that is their fun mixed together into one.
Yeah,
who knows?
It might be, and it might be way out of balance. Because, like I said, there's guys, it's like any of these pursuits for me were easy to just be completely lost in.
And before we sort of end and wrap it up, I want to say the other important thing that we've learned along the way, which we can get into more later, but is that I think it's really important for people to feel secure in themselves, to have fun without their significant other. I want to throw this out there, because it doesn't have to be with you need to do things together, absolutely, but I think it's freeing to be able to do things independently and bring it back to the relationship.
Well, yeah, because that's who you are.
Right.
I mean, there's a big part of who I am that has zero interest to me. Like, none. Like when I go to Sturgis with my buddies and we're riding motorcycles and suffering, literally suffering, because it's hot and we're riding 600 miles a day. And then, you get to the hotel or you pitch the tent and you have a beer and you smoke a cigarette and you feel like a badass because Sturgis is cosplay for doctors.
It's role playing, exactly.
And you just and then you get there and it's just everything's motorcycles and, it's awesome, right? I mean, I love it. I just eat that stuff up, and it's the greatest thing ever for a week or 10 days. But literally, if she was there, she would completely destroy the vibe. It would be no fun at all. Plus, it would be her version of hell. I mean, bikers, noise, and crowds. Basically everything in the world she hates.
Yeah, not my idea of fun. Nope.
And lots of fried food.
Gross. Yuck. Oh my goodness.
But you'd be such a cute biker. We could get you the right pasties and everything. It would be really awesome.
Yeah, I might be your biggest nightmare if I went there. I might attract a whole different crowd than you wanted. Anyway.
Yes. So anyways.
Leaving that to everybody's imagination, let's wrap this up and just remind everybody that our sponsor today is MR Insurance Consultants. So don't forget to reach out to them, where their goal is to assist physicians in obtaining the most comprehensive coverage available to fit their unique situation. Reach out for both excellent and quality service at drpodcastnetwork.com/MR Insurance. So if you're still here listening,
last week,
we know you're a super fan. And so our super fans deserve to know the BS-free truth, don't you think? But let's break it to them gently.
Yeah, so listen, if you have, spoiler alert, if you have not listened to last week's podcast, stop now, listen to it, and then
stop now.
Come
go
up
back
to this point, which is 38 and a half minutes, and then listen. Because, yes, my gosh.
Our phones were lighting up. They were the podcast drops at midnight, I don't know, probably Eastern time, and then at work all day, it's bing, bing, bing. Congratulations. This is awesome. We're so proud of you guys. We're so happy that I just knew it was too good to be true. You guys are awesome. And I'm like, whoa.
We had convinced even our closest intimates that we were actually going to be on a moon colony. So that said, that the best response I heard was, because people would be texting us during the podcast.
So it was released April 1st.
And then they would listen to the end of it.
I thought as we unwound it, it would like reveal itself to be more funny and like BS. And then
especially with the piss program and the prick capsule.
And there was a few people that were Googling that. One person who's a professional, I won't say what field, actually said, I can't, I know the government gives funny things to stuff, but I can't find it online. Yeah. I can't find it online. Where is it? I'm like, well,
the physical
you won't find it on April 1st because it doesn't
intimacy
exist.
Capsule, the prick capsule for studying sex in space.
And no, they meant that. I think either one.
I'm proud of that. That is heart cockle warming for me.
So yes, we got so many people, and then it's like, is it a joke or is it real? I can't decide. But anyway, at first we're like, you guys are fools. This is so fun. But then honestly, it's morphed into more of a feeling of, well, wow, I can't believe how much people believe in us, that they could believe that we could actually do that. Because everyone said the story was great, the backstory just had them convinced. Well, most everything that we told you in the backstory is legit. It's all true. The medical student is true. Bill, the guy from JPL, Tim,
he's a hybrid.
He's a hybrid. So anyway, most of all of that was all true. So thanks for playing along.
Yeah, it was fun and ultimately humbling to us. I think the best response was, I don't know if I should give you an epic high five or an epic middle finger. So that friend sent both emojis. And then on a little sadder note, this is the first podcast without our producer.
Yeah. Roxy, our yellow lab of 11 and a half years.
12 and a half.
Oh, how come I said, yeah, why am I saying 12 plus years? Lived a great life, but she passed on this weekend. It was really tragic. But she was the best. She, if you know me, know that I never liked dogs, and this is a unique situation how she became part of our life, and it's the only dog I've liked and loved, and it's been rough. So she used to sit with us all the time in here and was our producer. I think I posted some pictures of her, and we miss her greatly, and I know that anyone who knew her loved her too. So this show's in tribute to Roxy, and if you're in dog heaven, I know you're listening.
Yep. You took a piece of our hearts, but you left us with much bigger ones. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, and see you next time.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more, and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.